This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, good morning and welcome to another edition of the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are doing it via TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. Again, you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept, and this is radio the way it should be heard. We are broadcasting live on Facebook.com/TalkTainment. So you get to see us, or see me anyway, do this thing live for 2 hours from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. That's Eastern Time. If you're on the Pacific or on the left coast, it's at 6 a.m. out there. And we do that from 6 to 8 there. 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific time, but Eastern time, 9 a.m. until 11. And that second hour is the donation hour, which is possible because of your donations to the program. So we thank you for doing that. Again, you can stream us live on the TalkTainmentRadio.com website, or you can also look at us at Facebook.com/TalkTainment. We are on there. Live from Washington, D.C., we have on the line Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Before we go into politics for the, this is, I think, it's our 9th edition, and then we will have one more to finish it off. There have been different things in the news, but this past week, or at least since we last spoke, anything that stood out in your mind that brought something to your attention, maybe something we have missed or something that just stood out to you?
Well, just generally speaking, I was thinking this morning, what's going on in most places where black people are concerned throughout the entire world? And there's three basic things that I say along about now. It's a lot of instability. That's the main thing. Then poverty, then terror. Those three things. Instability, poverty, terror. Now, that's been kind of a perennial anyway. In other words, that's an ongoing thing. Always has been since the beginning of the system of racism anyway. Instability, poverty, terror. And so that's just an ongoing thing, but right now it's in most places it's just continuing, and it's kind of taken for granted. Instability, poverty, terror. In the Northwestern Hemisphere, for black people and some white people, I was just thinking that there was a slowly floating state of confusion and anxiety and frustration. And it's kind of framed in these questions. One, you might say, can be summed up in the title of a song by Marvin Gaye, and that's What's Going On?
Yes.
And I think that's on people's minds right now, both black and white in the Northwestern Hemisphere. What's going on? I think people kind of walk around all day with that swimming around in their minds. Mm-hmm. What's going on?
Yes.
You know, we look at the news and we look at what's going on Capitol Hill and what's going on out in the streets and what's going on in the schools and what's going on with the job situation. Certainly what's going on in health care, and that's affecting white people too. So that's a principal question. What's going on? And then another you can say that has to do with what I call the two kings, Rodney King and Martin Luther King. The title of Martin Luther King's last book, unless I'm mistaken, is where do we go from here? And that was back many decades ago. That was the title of his last book. Where do we go from here? That question is still valid.
Yes.
I think it's in everybody's mind. People think about this all the time. And then, of course, Rodney King is, can we all get along?
Yeah, can we all just get along?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think this is on the minds of both black people and some white people. Those three questions. What's going on? Where do we go from here? Can we all get along? And it's definitely on the minds of most black people and some white people. And so, in summation, I said, we're looking at all of this worldwide and in the Northwestern Hemisphere with these questions. And what do we actually do? And I say, well, stay the course. Stay what course? Stay what course? Stay the course of trying to be universal man and universal woman, meaning having all the best characteristics of a person who is growing into doing constructive things. And I think this is what black people should focus on right along about now in this frustrating, insecure, poverty situation, and this what's going on situation, this where do we go from here situation, this can we all get along situation. What should we be doing about now? The average black person.
Yes.
Or all black people, really.
Okay.
All non-white people. Try to lock on to all of the best characteristics that will help us to evolve into universal man, universal woman. Meaning what? Having constructive ideas when we wake up in the morning till we go to bed at night. Try to come up with some constructive ideas. Meaning, what do you do that is constructive? What can you say to someone that will have a constructive effect? And try to concentrate on this all day long. We're not used to it, but we need to center on this because this is the way out at any time.
Okay.
This is what I've been thinking about.
All righty. We'll touch on that throughout the 2-hour program. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. Let me slow that down. 1-877-932-9766. Or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Before we get into this, let's take this phone call. Go ahead, caller. You are line number 1. Okay, you are now on with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. This is Brother Muko from Baltimore, where we hold compensatory constructive action meetings, St. Louis Drive, every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., under the dome. A question for Mr. Fuller today from a care unit in Baltimore. Is Mr. Fuller, can you please explain to my care unit why we should revamp celebrations, reunions, cookouts, birthdays, how we're not qualified to celebrate any of them due to the evidence?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Because we're on a battlefield. I mean, when you're born on a battlefield, and also that battlefield is also a world prison if you are a person of color under the system of racism, which is the dominant government, the only significant government on the planet. How are you qualified to celebrate anything? It doesn't make sense. Celebrate what? There's nothing to celebrate. Absolutely nothing under these conditions. I mean, you know, what are you celebrating for? And what's supposed to be the effect of the celebration?
Exactly, and a lot would say, a lot of
people do things, they're supposed to have a reason, a logical reason for doing anything. I mean, that applies to an ant or a bird or a rhinoceros. You have a logical reason for doing whatever you're doing. So somebody invented a thing called celebration. We'll celebrate this. We'll celebrate that. We'll celebrate the other. So what is your reason for celebrating? You should have a valid reason that corresponds to your situation. That's the main thing, corresponding to your situation. So what's the purpose? You know, if you're just showing out to each other, I mean, for no particular reason, or just doing something out of tradition, and nothing ever should be done out of tradition.
And why is that, Mr. Fuller?
It should never be.
And why is that, Mr. Fuller, as far as tradition?
Because of logic. Logic.
Okay.
We're supposed to be in a problem-solving mode when you have problems to be solved. So you do things, I mean, you know, depending on what you mean by the definition of celebration, you celebrate by solving problems every day. Call that your celebration. You solved a problem. And then you go on to the next problem. And the fact that you solved the problem is a celebration. It's just another way of looking at what is a celebration. We think that a celebration is shooting firecrackers and this type of stuff. And we definitely shouldn't want to hear any firecrackers going off anytime, ever. Why? We hear too many firecrackers in the form of 9mm and 40mm pistols and AK-47s and whatnot. That's enough of that. We don't want to hear any of that. Have it quiet for a while. Not gunshots in the middle of the night. Enough of that nonsense. I mean, try to solve problems. Have it quiet. People try to interact with each other. People lower their voices. Stop screaming and yelling. And just talk. And try to solve a problem methodically. That's how problems are solved. You go about using a method to solve problems.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, caller from Baltimore. Let's do this. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several, or a few, or at least three that I would like to share with you. How about Senior Agenda? That will be one. The John Coates Show would be two. And New Money, which is one of my favorites because you need to know what money is. It's not probably what you think it is. But anyway, New Money. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com. And all you have to do is click on the program on the web page that we have here, and you can get the scheduled times. Now, all this is in exclusive from Talktainment Radio, and that's radio the way it should be heard. Okay, this is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, and we are discussing again politics. We're going to get into that as soon as we can. We are broadcasting live on Facebook.com/Talktainment, so you can see us there. Also, you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Let's go to the phone line. What line are we on here? Line one? Okay. Line one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, how are you this morning?
Go ahead, sir. Alrighty.
I wanted to know, in Mr. Fuller's compensatory thought, or however he would put it, I'm a 28-year-old non-white male. I am a welder fabricator by trade, and I'm in the middle of starting my own small business right now. But I have 3 children with a white woman and we're in a relationship. I would like to know, in Mr. Fuller's compensatory thought, what is the most constructive thing for me to do? Because he says that in the system of racism, white supremacy, non-whites and whites should not have a sexual relationship pretty much with each other. So I understand maybe all the other elements of our relationship are good, but not the sexual relationship, but we are together, so obviously we're going to have sex. So what does he think is the most constructive thing for me to do, since we do have 3 children together, and I guess you could say, I'm not, I don't know, I make good money, and I don't know, I do well for myself.
All right, Mr. Fuller?
Pick out parts of the code that would apply to your situation that would best serve a constructive purpose. You're already in the situation. Of course, everybody, every non-white person on this planet is already in a situation that he or she should not be in. We're all in, one. It may take one form, like yours. It may take other forms, but it's not a non-white person in the system of white supremacy who is in a position that they should be in. None of us, me, nobody else. And so none of us can really pass judgment on the other. All victims of racism, fellow prisoners, or fellow prisoners. So you just do the best you can with what the situation that you're in. The best you can in doing what? In trying to evolve into a better system, because we're not in a system that we should be in. This system is completely rotten, except for the technology. The technology is excellent, but the interactions between people is absolutely, into infinity, absolutely atrocious. None of us should be, white and non-white, in this situation that we're in this entire planet. You don't have a situation on this entire planet that really should exist the way that it is. Not one. Not one, as we speak right now in July of 2017. We should have a universal man and a universal woman with all of the characteristics. And everybody should be qualified to be in that category. And that's what we should aim for. And we have to start with where we are. And where are we? We're in a messed up situation. White people and non-white people. Why? Because we're under a system that is completely artificial and out of sync with the way things ought to be. And the name of that system is the system of white supremacy. So the short answer is, you just simply look at your situation, and you have offspring and whatnot, so you just try to tell them the situation that they're in. Everything is artificial, including my situation. All so-called marriages and whatnot are just as artificial as they can be. Why? Because we are in an artificial government. It's called the system of white supremacy. It is completely out of sync with the system of what should be the universal order. And that is a system of what? Justice, correctness, and peace. And the system of racism does not allow that at all. It's designed to do just the opposite, to mistreat people based on color. And so you have the mistreater and you have the mistreated. And no people should be like that. The world shouldn't be divided into mistreaters and the mistreated all day long, everywhere on the planet, non-stop, in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. In all of these areas of activity, that's what you have. You don't have any other system at all. So you just do the best that you can day by day in each one of those areas of activity: economics, education. How can you best talk to your offspring? How can you best go about solving problems in the most constructive manner? And pick out things from the code that you think will work best for you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Select the things out of the code that, as you just said, Mr. Fuller, that works best for you. All of them may not work for you at a given time. It just may not. But you do what you have to do. Let's get into the... we have another call. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, caller. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. What is your call?
All right, I apologize for hooking up with me. I just have one more question. In Mr. Fuller's compensatory logic, has he ever met a white person that has proven to him that they are not a racist?
Mr. Fuller?
Have proven to me that they are not racist.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I have met many white people who are doing their best not to be, but I have never met a white person that could be not a racist, in my opinion. Why? Because that's an absolute requirement in the system of white supremacy. If you're classified as white, you have to practice racism. Otherwise, you're going to be in big trouble. Big trouble with whom? The other members of that criminal syndicate called the system of white supremacy. In other words, it's like being in organized crime, because that's what the system of white supremacy is. I mean, you don't quit. There's no such thing as quitting.
Yes, but you said, Mr. Fuller, that, and help me to understand, a question could be or argue, you have stated several times that all white people are not racist.
I'm talking about babies, and see, this is a logical assumption. I always say follow the logic.
Yeah.
There are white babies that are being born right this minute. I couldn't logically come to the conclusion or even to suspicion that they are racist. They haven't been taught anything. You have to be taught to be a racist. You're not naturally a racist. Somebody has to tell you that that's the category that you're in, and that you should embrace that. And so babies, I mean, you know, and younger white people, some of them who haven't caught on yet to what their assignment is according to the white supremacists who are already here and established and in business, the only government, the strongest government that has ever existed on the planet. They haven't been able to introduce that to them yet. And also, this includes senile, I call it that, white people. White people who, many of them, used to use the N-word almost every day. I mean, there are some of them on this planet. I mean, you know, just going around, I mean, you know, just saying derogatory things, doing harmful things to non-white people everywhere they go, thinking about it all the time. There's a lot of white people like that. But when that same white person who is like that begins to get old, you might say, I'm using this as an example, becomes senile, so that they can't tell a spoon from a fork. Now, this white person who has been recorded as being an avowed racist, I mean, you know, for many decades and whatnot, you can't call that white person a racist now because they can't tell a spoon from a fork. You have to be able to know one color from another in order to be a racist. And there are white people who used to be racist, but now they're in a state of mind when, you know, when you examine them, I mean, they are somewhere in an institution maybe and all like that, in a wheelchair, 112 years old or something, or 90 years old or whatever, or maybe just had brain damage, so that they can no longer practice racism. See, you have to be able to practice racism in order to be a racist. You have to be able to. Newborn babies are not able to, and senile white people are not able to. Now, what about all the other people who are white that you interact with every day? Well, according to the code, you are required under the code, the counter-racist code, if you are non-white, to suspect.
That's right.
That white person who is able to be a racist probably is one. And it's not personal, it's business. Why? Because we're in a system of white supremacy where white people are required to be racist. That's not an option. At some point, every white person, you know, they say, well, you know, a white person might ask his mother, say, what is this thing about racism, Mama? You know, Daddy, tell me. I mean, you know, I keep, you know, people telling me about racism and harming people based on color. What is that all about? And if the white person will tell his or her offspring the truth, they'll say, hey, you're in a system where that's what we are all required to be, son. That's all we are required to be, my daughter. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, it was set up that way when we were all born. I mean, it's the only government that's going, and you get a lot of benefits from it. So you're a part of it. So you got to, if you don't want to be a part of it, you got to fight against it. But it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. It's going to cost you everything, because the syndicate does not allow us, as a family, as a white family, as a born members of this corporation, to renege on our responsibilities to uphold this system. It's the most vibrant, most forward-thinking, most profitable system ever thought up if you're white.
Okay. Well, then that leads me to this question. In the system of racism, white supremacy, when a person criticizes you for what you say about white supremacy, racism, you say to ask one or more of the following questions. That's starting on page 252. What should you ask?
Page 252.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Right in the middle.
Yes, it says, when a person criticizes you for what you say about white supremacy, ask one or more of the following questions. Okay. So the first thing you want to make sure of, if you're talking about white supremacy, the logical question to start off with this conversation is, what? Does white supremacy exist? And you don't go to the second question before you ask that first one, because, there's no point in having a conversation at all about white supremacy if you conclude right out of the gate there's no such thing as white supremacy. Now, that's a question that I ask all the time when people sometimes, you can say criticize or question, me about white supremacy. So that's before we can continue our discussion. According to the code, this is the first question you ask. Well, first of all, if we're talking about white supremacy, does it exist? All right. We want to get this straight. Is there any such thing as that? Does it really exist? All right. So you have to agree on that. Otherwise, there's no point in continuing the conversation at all. Why talk about something that doesn't exist? Now, number two, if white supremacy does exist, how do you suggest that people react to it in each area of activity? Now, that's going to call for a long conversation.
Yes, it is.
That you're going to go on and on and on and on and on until when? Until it doesn't exist. I mean, because evidently, if it doesn't exist, if it does exist, the assumption is maybe it shouldn't exist. So, the third question is, if white supremacy does not exist, what should be done with or against people who act as if it does exist?
Mm-hmm.
And that would include me. What do you do with people like me who believes that white supremacy does exist?
Because you're a victim.
Yes, I say I'm a victim of it, and it does exist. Now, what do you do with somebody who keeps saying that? When other people say that it doesn't exist, or if it does exist, maybe what should be done about it, or how, or who's supposed to do it?
Okay.
Right.
Hold it right there. Talktainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN, and the podcasts are available. All you have to do is download the Talktainmentradio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have some Gmails, more of your questions, and then what should racist man and racist woman do, with a question in the middle of page 252. We'll get to that and have Mr. Fuller address that. All that and more coming up next. Back to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and just simply download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. I'm Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our topic today is the sixth area of people activity called politics. We've been trying to inch a little bit in there, and we have a little bit. If you'd like to call in, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And also, you can look at the program live by going to facebook.com/talktainment. We're on live right now, and we will be for 2 hours. So those are the methods that we can that you can access the show. Mr. Fuller, on page 252, in the middle, there was a question that needs to your response, and that is, what is the correct thing to say when a non-white person says that he or she is not interested in trying to end white supremacy, racism, and or that he or she needs no counter-racist code to help solve his or her problems?
Well, you just simply say one. You have to have one answer for that. If a person says that racism doesn't bother them, they don't need any code or anything, I mean, to deal with it. If it does exist, and it probably doesn't exist with a lot of people, whatnot. So what is the correct thing to say when a non-white person says that he or she is not interested in trying to end racism, or that he or she needs no counter-racist code to help solve any of his or her problems? So according to the code on page 252, the suggestion is, as an answer, you say a counter-racist code is for those who need it.
Okay.
Very simple.
So if you don't think you need it, then okay.
You don't think you need it. I mean, this is what a person told me when I first wrote the basic book, the first edition, 1984, that came out in the form that it was.
Yes.
I started in 1957, but the 1984 edition, I gave a copy to a person on a job that I was on, and a few days later, he came back and said, "You know what you got here? You got a whole lot of nothing." All right, or words to that effect. I said, "Well, you don't find anything in there that you can use, whatnot?" And he said, "No, I don't see nothing." I mean, he said, "Your book means nothing to me. I don't see anything in it that I can use. Period. You know, I mean, you know what's in it? I can't use anything. I'm looking for something that I can use. You said I might be able to use something in it. I can't find nothing that I can use." And I said, "Well, that's the way it's supposed to work. That's the compensatory idea." I said, "I'm not trying to help somebody to have a problem." I said,
Yes.
"If you have no problem," I said, "what I've written is about problem solving. So if you have no problem that you can find an answer to in this book, then it means you have no problem that you can find an answer to in this book."
Mm-hmm.
See, follow the logic.
As you say that, and you started off the program with instability, poverty, and terror. Would that answer fit one of those three subjects, instability, poverty, or terroristic tactics of those, or by the white supremacist?
Would that answer fit that?
Yes. I mean, one of those three areas, instability or poverty or terror or terroristic tactics by the white supremacist.
Oh, well, the white supremacists always inflicting instability, poverty, and terror.
So they work in concert with each other.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
All of it.
Okay.
All of it. Instability is a form, terror is a form of fear. I mean, that's what terror means. Acute fear, unbridled fear, extreme fear.
Mm-hmm.
And terror, instability may cause a person to be terrified.
So you could have economic terrorism.
Sure.
Yeah, educational terrorism.
I mean,
political terrorism.
You have all of your belongings set out on the street. I mean, you might be a little terrified about that.
Yes.
At a low key.
Yes.
I mean, that's a form of instability.
Yes.
And that is brought about by poverty, So it's all interaction.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
See, these are just words that apply to conditions that shouldn't exist.
Right.
People should not be unstable. You should have a stable mind, a stable body. I mean, have some type of stability.
Yes.
You should not be in poverty, which means you have great needs that are not being fulfilled in a constructive manner.
Yes, be in balance with what the Creator has done.
Right. Being in balance with things.
Okay.
But the white supremacists, they look as their duty to keep non-white people in a state of instability, poverty, and terror all the time.
Yes.
All the time, one or the other, in greater or lesser degree.
Yes.
But all of it is interactive. That's what they do.
Okay. All right. Now, how about this? Okay. Now, in the system of racism and white supremacy, you were in the military. How does that apply, or what do they do, for those that have not been in the military? How does the system of racism and white supremacy apply in the military, particularly the military of the concept called the United States?
Well, they're the only United States that exist on the planet are the white supremacists.
That's why I said concept. I didn't.
Yes,
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. See, you don't have a United States of people who have agreed on practicing justice and correctness.
Okay.
That United States does not exist.
Okay.
See, because when you say United States, according to the code, first of all, what is a state? A state is a person. So you don't have any united persons anywhere on this planet who are effective in producing justice. Why? Because the evidence doesn't show that justice has ever been produced. So therefore, what kind of United States do you have anywhere on the planet? United people. You have people who are united, who are practicing racism. These are the only people that you see that are absolutely united.
Okay.
Other people have all kinds of factions, including all the people of all the different types of religions, particularly among non-white people. I mean, they're just fighting each other.
Yes.
I mean, about this, that, and others. Sometimes fighting about how the religion is supposed to be practiced. All over the planet. The only people that you see who are solidly united are those white people who believe in white supremacy.
Okay.
They are the most united people that the world has ever seen.
Right.
Why? This is because, and where is the proof of this? It's because white supremacy is the only effective government on the planet.
Okay.
Everybody caters to it.
Okay. Now, you were in the military, so what effect did white supremacy have on you being a quote-unquote soldier in the military of this concept?
The only reason I could be in the military is because the white supremacists say that's what you're going to be. I'm a prisoner of war. So wherever I am, I'm serving the system of white supremacy. It doesn't make any difference where I am.
Military or not?
Military, washing dishes, wherever. I'm sweeping a floor, operating an adding machine, operating a computer, driving a truck. I am in a prison system called the system of white supremacy.
So you were subject to the same mistreatment as somebody else that would be a civilian, so to speak.
Well, see, the system of white supremacy means mistreatment.
Yes.
You shouldn't be in a system of white supremacy, period.
Period.
Nobody should be. Not 1 minute of any day. But everybody of color is in that system. You're born in the system. You're born in the prison system called the system of white supremacy. It could be called the prison of white supremacy.
Okay.
I mean, you could give it that label in capital letters. The prison of white supremacy. When you say planet Earth, it's the prison of white supremacy if you are a person with color in your skin. Black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige, etc., etc., etc. Anybody classified as non-white is born in that prison. So anywhere you are serving that prison. This is why it doesn't make sense for black people who classify themselves as African American or whatever, to fuss and fight with each other about, who is the Tom of the week, who is the sellout and all like that. Hey, we all been bought and sold, and we all serve in the system of white supremacy if you are breathing on this map. And even if you're not breathing, even if you're a black person who is in a cemetery, you're serving the system of white supremacy. Why? Because that's the system of the entire planet, including where your body is located. Sometimes the white supremacists will decide, hey, where your body is located, if you're black, we're going to dig it up and put an apartment building where that graveyard is. That's an old Negro graveyard anyway. You know, who needs it?
Okay. Speaking about that, well, let's do this. Speak about your book.
Okay, the book is about making up for what's missing. Now, what's missing is a thing called justice, correctness, and peace. Those three things on this planet called Earth. And so the first order of business, this book is designed to try to produce justice, correctness, and peace among all of the people of this planet by doing what? Replacing it with that, by replacing the system of white supremacy with a system of justice, correctness, and peace.
Yeah, I'm holding
That's
up
what the book is designed to do.
I'm holding up both copies here. So
and
that
it's
people
supposed
can see.
to be addressed to the individual non-white person, the victims of white supremacy, and what he or she can do on a daily basis about in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. What suggestions about what a person can do about it who is classified as non-white.
Right.
And that's what it's for.
Okay.
And replace it with a much better system called justice, correctness, and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Like in product, we're trying to produce a product called justice.
Yes.
That's the first order of business, which means balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Okay.
And all of that is explained in the book, too, including the compensatory definition for the word justice. Go to producejustice.com.
All righty, producejustice.com. Okay, let's see here. Let me see if I can get a Gmail going here as soon as it comes up on the screen here. Okay, this comes from Dr. Frank. He says, Mr. Fuller, aren't whites subject to the same effects of supremacy as well? By and large, they are not in the 1%. They have an equal chance as I to have credit requests denied. In the absence of federal quotas, they can just as well be excluded from a hiring pool with someone equally trained and non-white. Wouldn't you say right now skin tone is the mark for exclusion? If, as they say, as we will one day be the same color, I feel racism will still exist because it is a human quality. Well, we'll find something else to make us distinct in order to feel superior. Tall versus short, island versus continent. Those who think racism will be eradicated with the removal of whites are sadly mistaken. Mr. Fuller, what do you think?
There are people who say that justice cannot be produced. That's just another way of saying that justice is impossible. I mean, if you stop and think about it logically speaking. Because what is justice? Justice is guaranteeing, underline, guarantee, that no person is mistreated, ever. You've got to guarantee that in order to have justice. And the other part of that is, see, the first part is got to guarantee that no person is mistreated. And the second part, you have to guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Yes, sir.
Swiftly. I mean, like right now, like yesterday. I mean, that person needs help the most. That's the person that gets the most constructive help. I mean, everywhere on the planet, 24/7, in every area of activity. Now, that's a tall order.
Yes, it is.
But that's what everybody on the planet should be working towards.
Okay.
Not trying to maintain all of these so-called systems that they have in place now, because these systems don't guarantee anything. I mean, except what you see.
Okay.
I mean, you just go by the logic and go by the evidence. What do you see now? You see poverty. You see insecurity.
Yes.
You see instability. You see mass terror everywhere.
Yes.
You see people worshiping terror. I mean, we go to school and we learn all about what? We spend more time in school learning about conquests and who conquered who. We study history. It's not about how to make plants better and whatnot. I mean, the history of corn and all like that, and how you can maybe improve a better way of planting corn and doing it not in an artificial manner so that you get the best nutrients out of it and all like that. That's not what we study history for. When I was studying history, it looks like every page that I would turn in the history book, somebody had a sword in their hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Julius Caesar and whatnot. And even today, look at Oscar, all right? Now, just for example, that popped into my mind. Have you ever noticed for the motion pictures now, you have a character called Win an Oscar? You've heard that expression?
Yes,
maybe?
yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So you say, I'm trying to win an Oscar for my performance on the stage. All right. What's an Oscar? It's a statuette, you might say.
Yes.
A statue, a small statue, a golden statue. So you look at that statue. Has anybody noticed that statue has a sword in its hand? Now, what's that got to do with the whole acting field? See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
That's
I never
just one
noticed that.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk about Cupid, now Cupid is supposed to be associated with Valentine's Day and love.
But it has an arrow and a bow and arrow. Mm-hmm.
Cupid is not only got a bow and an arrow, Cupid is shooting that arrow. Here's a little baby shooting an arrow from a bow into what? Somebody's heart.
Never thought about that. Yeah.
Somebody's heart. Now, then you're gonna run a world with all the. It could just go on and on and on if you really pay attention. Cowboy movies and whatnot. I was raised up on them. Cowboys doing what? Just herding cows? No. These cowboys, were shooting people.
Yeah, they were.
They was herding cows while they were shooting people, and usually they were stealing cows from somebody else who had cows.
Yeah.
That's
a good point. Subliminal messages sent through that.
Now I'm looking at a movie saying this movie is about what? It's about cowboys. All right? Okay. What do cowboys do? Well, they herd cattle. That's why they're called cowboys. But you say, well, wait a minute. You herd cattle, by doing what? You get on a horse and you have the horse form a circle around the cows, and so that you direct them to grassland where they're supposed to be eating and whatnot, so you can feed the cows. All right. Well, what are these cowboys doing in most movies? When they say a cowboy movie, they're talking about people killing people.
Yep. That's true. Gunfight at the OK Corral.
Right. The cows are just sort of something on the side, you might say.
Yeah.
Because the main point of the movie is who killed a person.
Right.
It's all about killing people.
Okay.
So it goes on and on and on.
All right. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can simply download the TalkTameAtRadio.com to your app or to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we are discussing politics, the 6 area of people activity in particular, would focus on instability, poverty, and terror. We'll take your phone calls at 1-877-932-9766. Gmail at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. Or you can look at us on Facebook.com/Talktainment. Let's go to the phone lines quickly. Line number one, you're on. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. I had a question, but I think I want to see if I understand correctly. So, if the world is a prison of racism, like Shawshank, as Mr. Fuller says, and so the white people who are able to be racist, I should consider prison guards until they prove otherwise.
You should do what now? You should consider what?
White people who are able to be racist, I should suspect they are prison guards in this prison system.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Until they prove otherwise?
Yes. The answer is yes. Why? Because in a system of racism, somebody has to be a racist. So you suspect anybody who is able to be one to be one. The key term here is able. Are all white people racist? I've answered that question according to the code, according to logic. No. You can't assume that because of the baby factor and the senile factor. You can't say all, A-L-L, underline that word. No, you don't assume that. But you do assume that if a person is classified as white and able to be a racist, the person should be suspected of being one.
Yes.
But you never, ever, under any circumstance, call a white person a racist. This is very important. Never. Unless that white person says, yes, I am a racist. I am a white supremacist. I believe in white supremacy. Then, if you are non-white, then you can say that that person is a white supremacist. That person is indeed a racist. Why? Because he or she said that he or she is a racist. But now you can say, since you can't say that any white person is a racist, you should never say that if you're non-white. But you can say, I suspect you could be one. Mary, I suspect that you could be a racist. Why? Because somebody has to be a racist in a racist system. I mean, I don't have Mary, I don't have a guide, or I don't have a book of all of the people on the planet who are racist, and then that would suppose that the rest of the people who are not on that list are not racist if they're white. I don't have that book. I don't have that guide. That's not in my computer. No one has made that up. So, since we're in a world dominated by racism, somebody has to be a racist. It could be you, Mary.
Okay. Well, when you hear the music, you know that's going to be the end of the first hour of this 2-hour program. So let's say this, TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, the radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. on TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest, and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. Again, you are now in touch with the compensatory concept. I'm Mr. Bobby, your co-host. Live from D.C. is Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. You can now view us on Facebook.com/Talktainment. That's live right now, or you can simply call 1-877-932-9766. And you can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. We are continuing. This is, I believe, the 9th edition of the 6th area of people activity called politics. We are focusing in on these three particular terms that Mr. Fuller started off the program with this morning: instability, poverty, and terror in the system of racism and white supremacy. If you missed the first hour, that should be up when Ed puts it up. But he went on to explain that, and we may touch on that again. But we're going to focus in those areas politically, instability, poverty, and terror. Let's do this. Mr. Fuller, on page 254 and a few others, you wrote stops. You said 10 basic stops that victims of racism should practice in thought, speech, and or action. Now, I'm going to read the 10, and we'll just select a few of them. But you said stop snitching, number 1. Number 2, stop name calling. Number 3, stop cursing. Number 4, stop gossiping. Number 5, stop being discourteous. Number 6, stop stealing. And then you really went long on that bad boy there. Number 7, stop robbing. Number 8, stop fighting. Number 9, stop killing. And number 10, stop squabbling among yourselves and asking the racist white supremacists to settle it. Now, you put all these stops in there, Mr. Fuller. Why is that so important for victims of racism and white supremacy to employ the strategy that you suggested here?
Well, I call them 10 basic stops. You can. I don't have the word basic underlined, but I could have done that. These are basics. If you can't stop doing these things, you might as well just keep the world that you got.
Why?
I mean, because these are 10 basic stops. I mean, that black people, people of color, or any people, anywhere on the planet, they should stop doing this, because this holds up this system that we have called racism and all the other so-called subsystems that you have of people interacting with each other.
Okay.
That's basically what we're talking about. The way that people interact with each other each and every minute of each and every day anywhere on this planet. I mean, it's a sorry state of affairs. It should not be.
Okay.
And so we need to stop all of this. Okay, and among black people particularly, when I first wrote this, I had in mind particularly people classified as black. I mean, this thing, and it applies to other non-white people too. And I started off with, and this is sometimes misinterpreted, and that's why in this edition of the book, I kind of elaborated on it. Stop snitching. That's the one that I started off with.
Yes.
Now, a lot of black people took that to mean, I go out here and rob and kill somebody, and I don't want nobody to tell it. You should want everybody to tell it. So let's nip that in the bud right now. Stop snitching? No. Snitching means something different from what a lot of black people take it to mean. Snitching means saying harmful things about people who should not be harmed. All right? Let's get that straight right away. Now, somebody out here robbing somebody, you tell it. You better believe you tell it. Why? Because when you rob somebody, you are doing what? You're harming somebody who should not be harmed. What are you doing robbing somebody for? So, snitching means saying things about people who should not be harmed. A person who is harming somebody should be harmed. Okay? So it says also, to snitch is to willfully and deliberately volunteer information about a person with the specific intention of gaining direct or indirect personal favors and or praise from the white supremacists.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what it says.
When you, that's what that applied to. You're saying things about a person with the intention of gaining favor and praise from the white supremacists. That would constitute snitching, and when that's your purpose for doing it. All right? But if your purpose is to protect somebody from being mistreated, oh, no. You don't protect anybody who's mistreating somebody.
Yes.
I don't care what the circumstances are. No. You break your finger pointing out this person if the person doesn't point out him or herself, which is what that person should do.
Yes.
All people should stand by their work.
Stand by their work,
That should be the future of the entire world. Whatever, if you go out here and harm somebody, you say to the whole world, yes, I did it, and if I had to do again, I would do it again. In fact, I intend to do it again. It is my intention to go around harming people, because that's what I do.
Yes.
All right? Let the world know that this is how you are.
I like what you said at the end of it when you suggested, you said, importantly, any person who mistreats another person should be revealed to the entire world as long as the person, as being the person who did the mistreatment. No exceptions. Revealing injustice, and you have this, is not, you had that underlined, not.
Not snitching.
Not snitching.
Very important line there.
Yes.
Revealing injustice. Anytime you see somebody being mistreated, and you reveal the fact that that person is being mistreated to the whole world, that is not snitching.
Right.
That is helping to produce a product called what?
Justice. And then you said it is, and then you had this underlined, correct reporting. Reporting mistreatment in a manner that helps to, as you just said, produce justice is always the correct thing to do.
Reporting mistreatment in a manner that helps to produce justice is always the correct thing to do.
Always.
I'll say it again. Reporting mistreatment in a manner that helps to produce justice is always the correct thing to do.
All right.
That is not snitching.
That is not
snitching.
That is
reporting mistreatment. All mistreatment of any person should be reported to the whole world instantly.
Yes. Yeah, I got that.
If Neely Fuller goes out here and mistreats somebody, the whole world should know that he did it.
That's right.
And they should, and the whole world, everybody on the planet should know that he did it 1 minute, if not sooner, after he did it. And then let Neely Fuller explain what he did and why he did it.
All right. Let's go to a Gmail. It says, a well-known YouTuber states that interracial pairings, black and white, support and perpetuate the white supremacy. If, as you say, Mr. Fuller, we come into this world as prisoners in a well-entrenched, dominant, racist society. If I marry a white woman, I'm told it may convey negative images or messages to black women or anyone else. Since I'm already under a yoke, should I care what others think, and am I more subservient for wanting to graft myself unto the white vine?
And that was a question?
That was a question, right here.
Are they more guilty than anybody else?
You could say that.
No, I'm saying no. We are all prisoners of war, of the race war, which means victims of white supremacy, are equal. We're equally guilty of being victims. If you want to say that that's guilt. I mean, we've allowed this to happen. So, if you want to put that guilt trip on it, I mean, you can, but we are all equal in being guilty, because we are all equal victims. All victims of racism are equal. All prisoners of war are equal, prisoners of the race war. And if you're classified as non-white and on this planet and you're breathing, you are a prisoner of the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
And you're equal to every other prisoner. There's no such thing as big prisoners and little prisoners.
Okay. All right. Let's take this email. This is interesting. This comes from Brother Cipitlo, which I really butchered your name, but anyway, I believe he's from South Africa. He says this: not only is our president not to blame for so-called South Africa's turmoil, but President Jacob Zuma seems to be aiming for justice and is being persecuted by white racist supremacy, media and the black people, especially black youth, is very misguided on matters of politics and what good the current president is doing. The BRICS Brazil ruffed a couple of feathers. Seems like the white supremacists in this part of the world are dead set against it and its implications. The president, Jacob Zuma, is currently in the process of amending laws, since we're supposedly given political power and the right to do so. He's amending laws so that it will allow for black people to expropriate land from suspected white supremacists without compensation. This is an injustice that has not been corrected. The white supremacists have monopolized all the land and have squashed black people in locations and ghettos. The media manages to drown out Jacob Zuma and is turning black people against him, even though his intentions are good. I know you say, Mr. Fuller, that black people cannot be together, but I feel like that black people in this part of the world need to be aware of what is really going on, so that we can use our politics to influence law, the law that influences economic, etc. I feel like a lot of good can be. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Fuller?
My thoughts on that is the same thoughts that I have every day when I talk about this subject, when I think about this subject, and being in this situation. And that is, replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And you have to codify everything that you do as an individual person to do that. And you start with that statement that's in the front of both the basic textbook and the word guide.
For those who don't know, repeat it, Mr. Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. I'm going to repeat that again.
Yes.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. So you have to get an understanding of what? Of white supremacy, what it is,
and how it works.
And how it works. How it works when? How how it works in economics, how it works in education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Because the white supremacists have a code for how they do their work in each one of those areas of activity. And one of the things they do in the area of politics, which means interaction between people, like they do in all of the areas of activity, is produce what? Confusion. Among whom? Confusion among the victims. Because when you can keep your victims confused and have them running around accusing each other of doing this, that, and the other, when you're pulling all the strings from behind the curtain like a magician, yes, you can always control people that way. And they are the masters of what? Confusion.
Confusion.
The white supremacists know that. They understand. First order of business, when you suppress people, once you get them under a certain, all your ducks in a row, once you get, them imprisoned, next thing you want to do is work on their minds so that they stay confused about everything. Right. They're always confused. Mm-hmm. And confused people just lash out in all kinds of directions. Confused people run around in circles, bumping into things, and then start swinging at whatever they bumped into. I mean, they're just stumbling and fumbling and screaming and yelling. That's the way the white supremacists keep the non-white people on this planet in that state. As much as they possibly can, all of the time.
All the time. Yes, sir. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. It's your time to travel. How about that? We could really use that. How about this one? The Voice of Deliverance. And then the next one will be At the Table. All you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times, and you're right there. Talktainment Radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. We are talking, and we're going to end our discussion this week in politics. We'll move on to something else. But we're talking about politics today, the sixth area of human activity, or people activity. And we've been focusing on stability, poverty, and terror. But right now, let's go to the phone lines. Line number one, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Neely Fuller. I appreciate your work. My question relates to a recent statement that was made by Dr. Umar Johnson as it relates to relationships. And I apologize if it doesn't tie into the subject of politics. I'm not sure, but the ideal concept is black on black love. And I personally, somebody who identifies as black, I agree with the concept. And my question basically, it ties into sexual activity amongst non-whites with black people, because it seems that the sexual activity with black people, or it seems that other cultures that are non-white seem to be privileged, or they gain benefit vis-a-vis the oppression of black people. So my question would be to Mr. Neely Fuller, what would be your ideal concept as it relates to black people being able to successfully establish a foundation and an environment for them that produces justice as it relates to sexual activity amongst blacks with non-white?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, my brother, could you condense it so that he could answer your question the way that it needs to be addressed?
Okay. Well, it seems that as it relates to non-white people, other non-whites it seems like non-white people that are not black, or that are not considered black, that may be considered Latin or Mexican, as groups are preferred, or they benefit vis-a-vis the oppression of black people. And so my question is, how should black people, if they want to gain any ground and establish and produce justice for themselves, what would be your ideal concept as it relates to sexual activity amongst black people with other non-white people?
Okay. Okay, Mr. Fuller, did you understand what he's asking?
I think I do.
Okay.
According to the code, based on logic, non-white is non-white. So all sexual activity between non-white people, all non-white people, is permissible and supposed to be desirable in the system of white supremacy. And as long as that sexual activity contributes to, happen to, replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. It's just that simple. That's all. The black, brown, red, yellow, doesn't make any difference what so-called divisions of classifications, which are really not divisions of non-white people. See, when you say sometimes, the white supremacists add to the confusion by saying black people and brown people. Well, most black people are brown. You ever stop to think about that? I mean, all of us should think about it. I mean, there's an answer to that question. What color are black people? All right? You can ask that question. When we say black, and then we say black and brown, what do we mean? Latino. Sometimes I hear the word Latino. Latino is not a color. Okay? What color is a black person? What color is Adam Clayton Powell? If you're going to personalize it, I don't usually like to do that. I'll use that as an example. Adam Clayton Powell, he was a congressman. If you look at his picture, what color are a lot of black people? Black people come in different shades of color. Anywhere from black, brown, beige, tan, what they call yellow. There's even a term called red bone. What does that mean? All right? Kind of a slang term. But it usually means a light-skinned black person. All right? Light skin. Is light skin white? No. Light skin is not white. It's light skin. A light shade of black. Because black is basic. But all over the world, even in what we call Central Africa, you can find people who are, if you look at them and know what you're looking at, when you look at them standing in the desert sun, and you'll see a person that you say, well, that person is sure enough black. That person is sure enough black. And you can tell by looking at the hair of, say, a black person in what we call Central Africa, standing in the desert sun, the sun shining strong on that person, look at the hair, and the hair is black, most likely, okay? And then look at the forehead of the person, right under that hairline, and the person's skin may be the exact same color, shade of color, as the hair, and you'll say, that's a sure enough black person. Then the person standing next to that person, all right, probably of the same tribe or the same quote-unquote family. And you look at the hair of the person and you'll say, the hair is black. Then look at the forehead of the person. The forehead of that person may be brown, if you really pay attention to what you're looking at. Now, so what's the difference between being black and being brown when a lot of black people classified as black, are brown? I mean, we're looking at people all day long that we say, yeah, here comes a black dude coming down the street. What color is that? What color is that guy, coming down the street? Say, oh, he's a black dude, But the person is actually beige. If you just want to be specific, but the person is classified as what? Black. And also, what? Non-white. So in answer to the question, Non-white is non-white. You're either white or you're not.
Okay. All righty. Let's continue on with the 10 basic stops. And thank you, my brother, for the call. Number 3, you said stop cursing. Why is that so important? That's on page 256 of the revised expanded edition.
Cursing?
Yeah, you said stop cursing.
You should stop cursing.
We're on the stops now.
You should stop cursing. Stop cursing. Stop cursing, people, means using profanity toward a person in a manner that is likely to be thought of as insulting or aggressive. Stop doing it. People think that cursing is something I got to do. I mean, that's the way I express myself. And, and just go around cursing all day and whatnot. Why? Because you've been taught that. That's why. Truth be told, you were taught this, that cursing someone or cursing about something, adds to the language in a constructive manner. Or it just adds to, you might say, the culture of a person, a given person.
Okay, but I've heard, and maybe you have too, but I've heard that used as a term of endearment. I've seen brothers come up to each other and say, "Hey, MF, how you doing?" And going through all the hand gyrations or so forth. I've seen comedians on shows, these specials, I guess, comedy specials. The great use of that word. I hear that word all the time, and so you're saying, according to this one, you were saying that it was insulting. Well, the brothers that smacked hand didn't seem to be insulted by that.
Absolutely. Words are neutral. All words are neutral. Words don't mean anything until you make them mean something. So words only mean what you intend for them to mean.
Explain
unless
yourself.
Somebody misinterprets it.
Okay.
What the code says, try to pick out the best words that will help a person think constructively. That's what you do. So you just ask yourself, is this the very best? Now, it may be harmless, but is it the very best? If you go around cursing all day long, does that help a person think constructively? I have been around people that almost everything that they would say, particularly in the military and then outside the military, all day long, everything that the person says, you got to put a curse word in there.
Okay.
I have found that not to be constructive form of communication.
Alrighty. Wow, that one snuck up on me. TalkTainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available, and you can download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. More of your Gmails and more. Okay, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are talking about the 6th area of people activity, in particular, instability, poverty, and terror are the focal points in this today's discussion. You can join in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. And you can also view the show live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you'll get to see me, but you can hear Mr. Fuller, and then you can also listen to it on your device. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with your straw man in the system of racism and white supremacy?
Straw man?
Yes, sir.
STRAW?
Yes, sir.
No, what is that?
Okay, well, since you asked, I'll briefly explain it. Your straw man is an artificial person created by law at the time of your birth, in the inscription of all capital letters name on your birth certificate or document, which is a document of title and a negotiable instrument. Your lawful Christian name of birthright was replaced with a legal corporate name of deceit and fraud. Your name in upper and lowercase letters, for example, Neely Fuller, has been entering all the legal person. Your name in all caps letters, Neely Fuller in all caps, is addressed, and therefore the two have been recognized as being one and the same. When you, Neely Fuller, the lawful being distinguished yourself as another party than the legal person, the two will be separated. Legally, since your birth, your artificial person has been considered a slave or indentured servant to the various federal, provincial, and municipal governments via your state-issued, state-created birth certificate in the name of your all-caps person. Your birth certificate was issued so that the user could claim exclusive title to the legal person created. This was further compounded when you voluntarily obtained a driver's license and a social security number. The state even owns your personal and private life through your state-issued marriage license and or certificate issued in the all caps name. You have had no rights in birth, marriage, nor will you have them even in death unless you recapture your straw man. The names on the tombstones and cemeteries are in all caps. The state holds the title to your legal person it created via your birth certificate. That's called the straw man. Have you ever heard of that? Because I didn't.
Never heard of any of that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I've been investigating that too, and it does seem like a real. But you have never heard of that. Okay, that's all right. The straw man. Let's go to the phone line. What line are we? Line number one. Line number one. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes. How you doing, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller?
Go ahead.
This is Marcus from Fort Worth.
Okay, Texas action.
Yeah, you know what it is. Hey,
I know what it is in the Metroplex.
Yeah. Hey, I was just calling to let you guys know I actually have been listening to you guys for a few years now, Mr. Fuller, for sure. I own his first book of the compensatory concept and the Word God. I did want to touch on, I just heard the statement that was just read about the straw man. I've researched that. That does exist. However, I would have to say that based on what I understand about black people in this country, none of that would apply to us because you technically don't really even have citizenship. You're not even treated like that. So I would disregard that statement as far as dealing with black people would be concerned. I don't see that being the case. My question for Mr. Fuller, we're talking about terror, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the areas that Mr. Fuller touched on.
Okay. Does Mr. Fuller think that the recent death of the lady in Minnesota would be an aspect of white sacrifice?
You mean that woman from Australia that was killed by the police law enforcement officer or whatever in Minnesota?
Yes.
Okay.
Does he consider that to be a form of white sacrifice?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
It could be. Because it resulted in the death of a white person at the hands of a non-white person, from what I have heard in the news. So, but according to the code, anything that happens that involves a non-white person that should not happen is the fault of the white supremacists. Why? The white supremacists are in control of everything that their victims, the prisoners of war, do. If you're the warden of a prison, like the captain of a ship, that's what the warden of a prison is. Whatever happens in your prison that should not happen is your fault. And particularly if you have a prison that never should have been set up in the first place. So if you're the warden of the prison, you're the head of the prison, which means every white supremacist on the planet is a warden of the prison. prison called the system of white supremacy that imprisons the non-white people of the entire planet. Anything that happens in that cell block, one prisoner stabbing another, or if a prisoner stabs a guard, it is the fault of the prison master, like on a ship. People always say, as far back as I can remember, maritime law, anything that happens on a ship that should not happen is the captain's fault, even if the captain was asleep when it happened. Because the premise is the captain is the captain, and if something happened while the captain is asleep on the captain's ship that should not have happened, the captain is to blame because the captain is the captain. Everything is the fault of the captain. The captain shouldn't have been asleep at the time that it happened. That's the way they look at it. That's the logical way to look at it. Anytime you take a supreme position, in particular when you brag about being supreme, it means anything that goes awry in your system, because there's nobody's system but yours, then it's your fault. Now, you can say that the person who did the act that shouldn't have been done is at fault too, and that's true. But the supreme fault lies with the supreme power. So you always go with the power. Hey, you sort this mess out. The only way that guy could have, made that mistake, if it was a mistake, in your eyes, and you call it that, because you call all the shots anyway. The white supremacists have to, they make the judgment on what that was all about and how that came about and whether or not it should have happened or should not have happened and for what reason. Because they have the power. They gave the gun to the person that had the gun, either directly or indirectly. You have any non-white person anywhere on the planet that has a gun in his or her hand, that gun came from the white supremacists.
Okay.
That's the truth of the matter.
That's the truth of the matter. Let's see here. Let's do this before we go on here. Before we conclude, I should say. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can simply download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby. I'm the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, as our brother just did from the Metroplex down in Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas area. Or you can simply Gmail me by going to the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. That's BOBBY. Or you can also view us live on Facebook at facebook.com/talktainment. And we are on. While we are doing that, Mr. Fuller, could you briefly just discuss your book?
Yes. The book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's the basic title. A supplementary title is A Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified, a Compensatory Counter-Racist Code, rather.
Yes.
And another supplementary title, you might say the book has 3 titles. This one is more explicit and to the point. A textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. And racism is always defined, according to this code book, as white supremacy.
I'm pointing it out on
no
TV.
other form of racism other than white supremacy.
Right.
In a system of white supremacy.
Okay.
You can't have 2 supremes. And the book is designed for the victims of racism, suggestions about what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, in every situation, and examples of those situations throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
What to say, what to do, what not to do, what not to say, in every area of activity. Examples. That's what the book is about. It just shows examples. It doesn't cover everything that a person can possibly do, but it gives some guides for the individual victim of racism. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
Okay. Now, before we get off of that, I'm holding it up so that people can see on the screen. You also have a word guide with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
the
holding
word guide is just an addition to the basic book. Most people get the basic book, which is what I recommend that you do first. And if you want to get the second book, if you find something of value in the first book, you can get the second book. Sometimes people send for both books at once. But the second book is just an extension of the first book. But I couldn't get it all in one cover.
Yes.
I would have liked to have done that. I tried to figure out a way to do it. Have the book all under just two covers, one book, because I have a slogan, one problem, one book. So in function, these two volumes are supposed to be one book.
Mm-hmm.
But the second book is a compensatory, counter-racist, codified word guide about what words to look for when other people use them and how these words are used and how you should use words and not use words. What's the best words to use in certain situations in all the 9 areas of activity.
Yes, sir.
And that's what that's about.
Okay. All righty. Let's do this. Let's go to the phone lines here. Line number what? 1? Okay. Line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Is that me?
Yes, that's you.
Oh, hi. This is Retro out in California.
Okay.
Mr. Fuller, real quick, I've been, I have a long history with you, and I heard something that was challenging the other day as to what I thought that you showed me, so I wanted to ask you. Could you explain the relationship between status and racism? Because the first one basically showed where the problem is status versus racism. So show me the relationship between racism and status.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
If I got the word correctly, the word is status.
Status.
Yes.
S-T-A-T-U-S?
Yes.
Oh, it's about royalism. Racism is just another form of royalism, meaning if you're classified as white, you're royal. That's basically what it is. The old class system. Presumably, based on the evidence, somebody thought of taking the royal system, meaning when you're royal, to use as an illustration, the king and queen can do no wrong. They're always right. Even when they're wrong, they're right.
Wow.
See, that's what royalism means. I'm the king. I'm the queen. I'm the dictator. What I say goes. What everybody else says makes no difference. This is status, all right? This is a class system. Somebody thought of taking the class system that's been around like forever in recorded history, the idea of kings and queens and emperors and whatnot, dictators and whatnot. Somebody thought of taking that same royalist idea, that status idea, that, hey, I have a higher status than you. I am greater in power than you. Taking that same idea and putting it on a color basis. And it took off like a rocket and turned out to be the most powerful religion and the most powerful political system that the world has ever experienced in recorded history. It has set a record. It is the most accomplished system when it comes to technical things. And so a lot of people say, hey, well, white supremacy really, has a lot of benefits for everybody. This idea of mistreating people based on color. So, people are kind of mistreated, but everybody really generally profits from it. Well, you can have the same system under the system of justice. That's the concept anyway, but we have no proof of that because we've never had justice. But you can do the same thing in all of the so-called systems that have been handed down, royal systems, since the beginning of recorded history. You can get the same thing through the system of justice if you just work at it, which means guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated. You can accomplish things. You can build bridges and highways and fly airplanes and go to the moon and all like that in a system of justice, just like you can in a system of white supremacy. The premise is you can do it without mistreating people, and that means justice, rather than try to do it in a system of racism where you deliberately mistreat people in order to do it.
Okay. All right. Did you have another question before we go, my brother?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your call. Okay. All right. We're moving along here. Mr. Fuller, going on to the stops here. We have about eight minutes to go here, a little over 8 minutes. Let's do this. You mentioned here the sixth one, stop stealing. Explain yourself, please.
Stop stealing? Well, that's something that people have told all the time. Don't steal. Okay, what is stealing? To steal from a person for any reason is to promote injustice. Anytime you steal, you're promoting injustice. To steal, even to survive, is to promote injustice. To steal, even from someone who has stolen from you, is to promote injustice.
Wow.
To steal, even from an enemy, is to promote injustice.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me understand something. In the O.J. Simpson case here, he just took back some stuff that was allegedly stolen from him. Are you saying that he didn't have a right to do that?
Well, what I'm saying is, according to the code, when you have to steal from someone, stealing means you take something from someone without someone knowing it. Okay, that's what stealing means. Steal. It comes from the word stealth. All right. In other words, you're not standing by your work. That's stealing.
Okay.
Now, if someone, hey, you can get robbed on the street. I mean, robbing means taking direct action to take something from someone unjustly.
Okay.
See, because that's the next thing on this list of stops.
Okay.
Okay, stop stealing, stop robbing. But now stealing is you sneak, like a burglar steals.
Okay.
You can say that's robbery, but it's basically robbery by theft. In other words, you steal, you take something from someone, and nobody knows who did the taking.
Okay, I got you.
All right?
I got you, yeah.
Yeah, you sneak around, and you go into a building, say, that's unoccupied when nobody's there, and you make off with the computer equipment.
Even if it's your computer?
Even if it's your computer.
Yeah,
right?
and
if it's your computer, what you do is just prove that it's your computer. All right? You don't steal it back.
Okay.
All right? You just let people know, my computer's over in that building.
Okay.
And you let everybody know. You're not stealing. You let everybody know. I'm going over there and announce to the whole world that computer belongs to me.
I'm getting my stuff back.
yeah, right.
Okay, I got you.
And you take somebody with you who's authorized to help you take it.
Now, that's the point.
All right,
yeah.
that's the procedure.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to the phone lines. What line are one? Okay. Line number one, you're now on with Mr. Neely Fuller. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to ask I have two questions.
Well, you got to ask them quick because we're down to 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, they're quick. The first one is about poverty, since we're talking about instability, poverty, and terror. In poverty, is most of the poverty forced poverty, or is it selective poverty by us? For example, Mr. Fuller said that Gandhi said that poverty is one of the worst forms of violence. So is that forced poverty on us, or just us being influenced to want things by the white supremacists?
Okay, Mr.
For example, if I eliminate all of that, I wouldn't be in poverty. If I eliminated the need for TV,
okay,
or if I eliminated the need for various other luxury items.
All right, Mr. Fuller.
According to compensatory counter-racist logic, yes, poverty is enforced. Enforced by whom? During the system of white supremacy, by the usual suspects, the white supremacists.
Oh, okay.
They are the ones. Why? Because this earth can take care of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You got enough bamboo stalks and whatnot, enough materials of every kind You got enough trees, enough water, enough rock.
Yes, sir.
Enough minerals to see to it that everybody has a shelter.
Okay.
You know, stable. Everybody is fed. Everybody got plenty of food. You can have food running out of people's ears all over this planet.
Okay.
You have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of food that is what? Hoarded by the white supremacists and then thrown away.
Thrown away.
Just absolutely thrown away. Yeah. Fresh food thrown away.
Not good. What's your second question, sir?
The second one is on page 80 under the area of economics.
Page 80?
Page 80, yes. Right, a quarter down the page, right up under the needs. Talking about the need for more food, the need for intoxicating drinks, for drug chemicals, or the needs. In the explanation, it says, do not keep company with or allow yourself to be influenced by any person who tries to get you to need something that you do not need. Avoid contact with people who try to get you to increase your need for anything that may make you more dependent on another person, creature, or thing. Start now to avoid such contact. I want to get a deeper explanation on that. For example, is that relative to each person? If I have an eating disorder and I'm around this person that likes to eat, then I need to avoid that person, right? Going by that explanation, correct?
Mr. Fuller?
Absolutely. Avoid anybody being around you who keeps trying to increase your needs. You already have needs. You have need for food. You have need for health care. You have a lot of needs already. You don't want anybody around you who tries to increase your needs. I mean, like somebody who's going to sell you some opiates or something and all like that.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they'll say, you need this. Well, wait a minute. Well, I need this in order to do what? Well, I mean, you just need it. It'll make you feel better and whatnot, better than you feel already. I mean, you know, you're probably kind of down in the dumps, so this will, well, wait a minute. Is this going to make a problem or solve one? See, that's the question. That's the question. Is this going to make a problem or is it going to solve one?
Yes, sir.
Or is it going to solve a problem and make another problem?
Yeah.
All right? See, these are questions that you ask. And, hey, you don't want any more problems. So sometimes increasing your needs means you are not solving a problem. You're making a problem that you didn't have.
Okay.
So beware of anybody who tries to increase your needs.
Okay. And the last one, what we didn't get to, was stop squabbling among yourselves and asking the racist white supremacists to settle it. Well, when you hear the music, that's the close. So we want to say thank you. TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard. Next week, we're going to start a new chapter, the 7th area, people activity, religion. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you, callers. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.